Hi guys, welcome back to DressYourFaceLive.com. Today's class is very special. It's not a live class, this is actually a bonus class feature that I created for two reasons. One of your biggest requests was a specific makeup look that I'll show you in just a second, and that's what this class is going to be all about. And number two, my amazing friend Rosa is visiting us from very, very far, and I've known her from in the late 90s, early 2000s, sometime like that? Maybe 2000 something.
8.
Oh yeah, Facebook.
MySpace.
MySpace, oh my God. So we've known each other for a while online, and we've never met in person, and I was so thrilled when she finally told me that she's coming to LA to visit, and I was like, girl, you have to be in my class. You have to be a part of this. Like, there's just no way that I can't have you here. So I know that you guys are just gonna love her so much. She's like the sweetest girl, and I fell in love with her years and years ago online, and even more now in person. You guys have seen her on my Snapchat a little while back. But anyways, today's class is gonna be pretty amazing. And so what we're gonna be doing, I'm gonna pull up the picture just so you know exactly which class this is, but I don't know if you remember if when I had posted this really, really gorgeous, like, party makeup look. It wasn't a bridal look, it was more of like a very bold, colorful party look for Indian parties and ethnic parties and such. I'm just gonna pull it up for you so you know which one it is. So here it is. It is this look that everyone voted for to have a special class on. So I'm going to show you exactly how I came up with this look step by step so you guys don't get too overwhelmed. Believe me, you won't mess up as long as you take these steps and really just learn them at your own pace. So that's the beauty about this particular class. You can fast forward and rewind as many times as you want, so you can really understand every step. Make sure you have your notebooks and pens handy in case you want to write anything down. And let's go ahead and get started. So at this point, you're going to get a nice close-up view. And the first thing that I'm going to do, she has nothing on her skin right now. This is how gorgeous her skin looks with nothing on it. The first thing I'm going to do is use my brand new Pearl Radiance Primer from LC Cosmetics. What I love about this is that it's oil-free, but it's also hydrating and smoothing on the skin, and it basically blurs the skin on contact. So just like any other primer, you wanna apply a pretty healthy amount all over the face. I sanitize my hands, and I like to just use my fingertips to apply everywhere. That way I know that her skin is drinking it beautifully and there's no excess product sitting somewhere and not being absorbed. So I like to just kind of make sure I'm really massaging it into the skin and giving her a nice even feel and a very silky touch. So I'm making sure I'm getting under the eye, all over the cheek, and now I'm gonna focus on the T-zone, making sure that everything is nicely blurred here. Especially, you do not want to forget around the nose area. Sometimes we accumulate a lot of extra oils around the nose. And then whatever's left, I'm just using around the edge of the mouth. And that's it. So at this point, we're ready to do her foundation. Now, depending on your client, if you're working on a client, I usually ask my clients, do you want me to match you to a foundation that's lighter than your skin tone, darker than your skin tone, or do you want me to match you exact? A lot of clients want that exact match, but depending on who you're working with, if it's an Indian bride or someone who is asking for more of a traditional look, it's very common for them to ask for a lighter, brighter shade, because what happens is when you apply a darker or a regular color foundation on them that you think will match them exactly, sometimes their skin can oxidize the color and it can get darker while they're wearing it over time. So one of my little ways of doing it is sometimes if they're asking for a brighter look, to match them to 1 or 2 shades lighter than their actual skin tone, and then it starts to oxidize over time. With the MAC Studio Fix foundations, I usually don't see it oxidizing very much. I haven't had that complaint at all, but it could also be because I use so many layers over it, which we're about to do, that end up covering the foundation, so you end up not even seeing the foundation color anyway. We do a lot of highlight and a lot of contour, and you can kind of play with the color that way too. So I'm not so picky about the foundation, to be honest. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix a couple things on her to create a really cool foundation color for her. So I'm gonna mix NC25 by MAC, and this is what that looks like. And I'm also going to mix a little bit of vanilla by Elsie. So just to lighten it up just a bit. So I'm gonna mix these two together to create a nice tone for her. This is the first time that I'm doing her makeup, so I haven't like color matched her before, but I basically just pick out colors based on me knowing what my shade is, and because she's lighter than me, I'm adding a lighter color for her. If she was darker than me, then I would add a darker color for her. But as long as you know your shade in different brands, you'll know what your clients are based on that. So right now I'm using the Morphe Duo Fiber Foundation brush, and I'm mixing the two colors together, and we are just going to stamp it right into her skin. This stamping motion is really going to create a flawless finish. For those of you who have been my members for a really long time, you guys have already mastered the face by now. So I don't mind if you ever want to skip through these parts of class so you can get right into the eye looks. But in case you ever need a refresher, it is nice to see the whole class from start to finish. And we're just stamping until it basically disappears. It looks so good. I think this color looks amazing on you. Again, this was MAC Studio Fix Foundation in NC25 mixed with Elsie Cosmetics Vanilla, and the two of them together create a very nice effect. Studio Fix is a very heavy foundation, it's very full coverage, and it looks amazing on camera. Elsie Cosmetics is safe for every day, and it's buildable, so if you want to use it heavier, you can add a second layer, or if you want to go for more of a day-to-day nice kind of a more natural finish, then just use one thin layer of Elsie. And I'm just stamping it in until it starts to disappear. That's the whole part of it. I'm just stamping, stamping, stamping until it disappears. Keep in mind, we still have to do concealer, we still have to do all the highlight and contour, so if it's not like a flawless finish, it's okay, because we still have a lot to do. And make sure you get around the nose really nicely. It's very easy to skip some of the redness around the nose, but you definitely don't want to overlook any of those areas. So pretty. Okay, it's looking very, very nice. Whatever's left on the brush, I like to just roll down the neck just to even down to the chest area and make sure everything just looks very uniform. Now that all that is done, we're ready for the concealer, and the brush that I'm going to use is Morphe 428. This is the dual fiber concealer brush, Morphe 428, and I'm going in with my NW25 concealer. I know a lot of you are going to be asking, okay, why do you have all these NCs and all of a sudden you have an NW concealer? Well, it's because the NC25, in my opinion, sometimes can go on a really yellow under the eyes, and I don't want it to look too yellow. I want it to look more apricot. And the NW25 has a hint of that pinky apricot tone, which I like for people that don't really have major dark circles or anything. If you do have major dark circles, then in that case, I would recommend NC42, which has a lot of orange in it. And that can tend to actually give you a much more flawless effect. I'm going to use a beauty blender, a brand new beauty blender, to smooth out any type of creasing and absorb extra product under the eyes. And it is not a damp beauty blender, it is a dry one. And the reason why I don't like to use it damp is because I feel like if it's damp, it could dilute the coverage, and I don't want that to happen. I really want everything to be super, super full. Rosa, what do you prefer? Do you like a very full coverage when you're doing makeup, or do you like more of a sheer look?
I like when it's like perfect. With the full coverage, that's what I usually do.
Awesome. The Barbie effect. I call it like mannequin face, where there's absolutely no pores, no nothing. It's just perfection.
Tamana's actually the first makeup artist that's had the opportunity to do my makeup. I haven't had anyone do my makeup.
Really?
Yeah.
So all those amazing pictures of you, you did it yourself?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it looks fully professionally done.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Rosa, you're so good. Rosa came to my class and she was like by far way more advanced than almost everyone. It was so wild.
Ariana was the best.
Ariana was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, she was pro. She was on a totally different level. But
I actually learned a lot yesterday.
good.
So when I put my makeup on today, I was actually having the things I learned yesterday in the back of my head.
Oh,
Especially with eyeliner
good.
and eyes.
Oh, yeah. A lot of these steps are so life-changing. The way you can create such a flawless effect is it's wild. So now we are going to use the Cinema Secrets foundation palette. This is their older palette. Now their palettes look more like this in this packaging here. But in case their colors are the same, I'm not sure if their colors are the same, but this one is the number 9, kit number 9, which has all the darker shades. So I'm going to use this for her contouring, and I'm going to show you a different way to contour, basically blending while you're contouring. And then this lighter palette, foundation kit number 3, I'm going to use the lightest one to brighten up her highlight zone. So first we're going to do all her highlighting with the same concealer brush that we just used. That would be the concealer brush M428 from Morphe. And I'm just dabbing it along her highlight zones. So kind of just throwing it on under her eyes, up onto the cheekbone, down the side of her nose. We're also going to do the center of the forehead. We're going to run a line all the way down the bridge of her nose, brightening up above her lip and her chin. And now with the same beauty blender, I'm just going to blend it right into her skin. And it's going to absorb the excess amount, but it's also going to allow what I applied on her to blend in without messing up all the foundation layers. And I am bringing it a little bit high into her under eyes just to overlap a little bit with the concealer. But if you notice, I didn't actually apply it under her eyes because we already had that concealer on. But when you blend it, it does spread. So in that sense, it does go up there. Smooth all this, smooth here, smooth here. And now we have this brightening effect right around the face area in the center core of the face. Now I'm gonna whip out one of my favorite brushes. This is Morphe G30, the Morphe G30 brush. And I'm going to dip into a darker contour shade from the darker palette that I just showed you. And I am going to use my hands as a palette. And she's going to turn a little bit this way. And I'm just going to chisel right onto her cheekbone. So basically from the top of her eye going towards the corner of her mouth, but not below the corner of her mouth. It's kind of floating right above, so it almost kind of curves into the nose area. That's the angle in which I am applying this contour. And I'm going to, again, use my beauty blender to blend it into her skin. So it just looks flawless. But I still want to see a little bit of that cut. We are going to see more of this cut once we set it with some powder though. So in case you lose some of your highlight and contour during these steps of blending, don't worry too much. As long as you see a little bit, you're fine. It's enough to build off of. We're also going to just add a little bit of shadowing underneath on the jawline here. And we're also very little just doing it on the temple zone. I'm not gonna contour all the way around her hairline, only because she doesn't have a big forehead, so there's really no reason for us to really contour there, but I still want a three-dimensional effect, which is why I'm doing it around the temple zone. Now we can do the other side. And same angle. And we're just gonna blend the product into the area above, so just slightly overlapping it with the highlight, just slightly. And then I can go back and kind of re-chisel and really make it dramatic if you wish. So of course this all depends on your client's wishes or your own wishes, how dramatic they want to go. And then I love doing the jawline, but very lightly. I'm not a fan of a very dark brown jawline out of nowhere. You definitely don't want to be walking around without that blended jaw, so make sure it's nice and blended. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I think we should be good here. Next, I'm going to use a smaller brush to apply her nose contour. Now, with the nose contour, I don't like to overdo it unless my client specifically asks for a very dramatic nose contour. But what I'm going to do is I'm only going to create a couple of thin lines. This is using my linear MAC brush. This is linear number 1. It's a very skinny MAC Pro brush. And I'm making tiny, tiny lines right along the side of the nose. Looks very interesting, I know. And we are going to just cut the tip and create a line right across just to shorten it up. And I will blend it with the Morphe E47 brush. By the way, you guys, whatever brushes that I'm recommending, that doesn't mean you go and you have to buy it. I know a lot of you are starting out as makeup artists. You may not want to start off with so many brushes, or maybe you want to slowly build your kit. Just get the bare minimum, a few of these types of brushes. You don't have to buy every single one, and you can absolutely blend with your fingertip. I love blending with my finger. I feel like the finger works absolutely perfectly, and sometimes even better than a brush. So on one side, I'm going to show you how I blend with my fingertip. I just basically wipe it off a little bit, or if you like to use brushes, just use a brush like this and very lightly start blending down. Just a bit. So that's completely up to you if you like fingers or brush, but I definitely don't want any of you to feel pressured into buying brushes that you may or may not need. I'll let you guys decide based on how you like the brushes strokes on my models. So now that we're done with the highlighting and the contouring cream steps, now it's time to set everything with powders, and this is where things look so amazing and very, very photoshopped and airbrushed. I'm gonna grab NC20 Studio Fix powder. I'm almost done with it, in fact. And I'm gonna go into my MAC 227 brush. It looks like this. Morphe also has very similar brushes if you wanna go and get more economy brushes. And I'm gonna dig in and get a crap load of powder. I mean, I'm getting a really good amount of this powder here on the brush. Now she's gonna look all the way up to the ceiling, but the chin down a little bit. Yeah, beautiful. I'm gonna smooth out any possible creasing, and I'm gonna start stamping. You wanna be a little careful with this, especially if your clients are wearing lenses. You don't want too much powder floating into their eye. But you're gonna stamp around and create a nice mattified effect. I'm gonna do one side first, and then you can see the difference. So I'm gonna finish off with all of this section right over here. This is the section that we highlighted under the eye. I'm gonna finish with the upper lip area. Remember, I'm just doing half of her face right now so you can see the difference. I'm going to go up all the way to the side of the nose. This is going to remove any existing shadowing on the side of her nose. And the forehead. Lastly, we're going to do this area right here, the chin and the area right underneath the lips, just to lift the lip a little bit. All right, now that that part is done, we're going to switch brushes to any smaller brush, like a small eyeshadow brush, for example. So I'm grabbing my small 239 brush from MAC, and I'm just stamping the same NC20, which is her highlight powder shade, up and down in a straight line down the bridge of her nose. And I want it to be very bold, very bright, very strong. So as many layers as it takes for you to really see it nicely, that's fine. Okay? Gorgeous. Now we're going to switch over to a darker powder. This is going to be for her contour zones, and I'm going to use my tapered Morphe brush 438, which I highly recommend, 438. And the powder that I'm going to use is NC 43.5, but if you're in the US, you can get NC 44. It's very similar. And we're going to turn her a little bit, yes. And I'm just going to go ahead and set the contour line, and I'm going to roll it a little upward towards the previous section that we just set. I'm also going to slightly bronze underneath her jawline, just to give a little bit of color here. And a slight little bronzing on the temple zone. Nothing too dramatic there. You can also squeeze your brush and very lightly set the side of the nose, but I don't like to set too much of that because I don't want it to turn too orange or too brown. Now the third powder we're going to use is going to be a regular skin color powder for her, something that closely matches her skin tone. NC25 is one of her options. Another option that would work well for her is NC40, depending on how dark or how light her skin is throughout the months. We can go either or. We could even mix the two to create a perfect balance. I'm going to use the NC25, but if I feel like it's too light, I can always add a little bit of bronzer on those areas. So the brush I'm going to use is the MAC 109 brush. This is a little puff brush right here, very cute. And I'm dipping right into the NC25. And now I'm going to set the areas that have not yet been set. So this entire jaw area right here has not been set yet. And what's cool about this step is that it also chisels the contour, the cheek contour. So now it looks much sharper and it has a very, very fierce looking effect. And then right in between the contour and the highlight up here, we're adding a little bit more just so it looks even more blended. We're going to do a little bit on the hairline here just so we have a little bit of a 3D effect going on. And now I'm going to show you the side of the nose. We're going to add this color to soften up the nose contour so it looks much more natural. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, so now I'm going to have you see the difference between the set side and the still wet side here. So we have this which has been powdered. It hasn't been fully blended yet. We still have to kind of work with it a little bit, but it's been fully set. And then we have this side which has not yet been set. So this side basically still looks a little raw and undone. So you can see how well the powder actually blurs the skin and makes the skin look a lot more soft. So now we're gonna go back and finish up the other side. So NC20. We're gonna start off under the eyes and finish up the entire triangle area underneath here. And yes, this is a lot of makeup. I know a lot of my clients, not my clients, but a lot of my students out there ask, what about the clients that don't want a heavy effect? Well, if they don't want a heavy effect, this is definitely not the type of face you want to do on those clients. You want to do a little bit less of the whole contouring. You want to focus more on just giving them a much more blended and softer effect. So less powder. I would even skip the cream contour altogether so it doesn't look too dramatic. But then keep in mind, if you're not going to use as much powder over their foundation, it may not last as long. So that's the trade-off. So do they want a flawless face that's going to last basically until they physically take off all their makeup, or do they want a more natural look which may not even last a few hours? So you can always do something in between where you do a pretty good amount of powder, but you don't do so much of the cream contour so it doesn't look so dramatic. But my brides, they hire me and they hire my DYF certified artists for this reason, so that they get that Barbie look. And a lot of girls out there now, especially because of Instagram and because makeup is so mainstream now, they've been a little bit more willing to try heavier looks. And they start to fall in love with it. So that was the lightest color. We're gonna go into the contour shade now. And roll it up so it can blend with the highlights. So pretty. I love your face shape.
I love you.
And a little bit here, not too much. And lastly, NC25, which is going to be her middle tone. We're gonna do a lot down into her jaw area. It basically slices her contour really nicely and creates a beautiful line down here for definition. We're also gonna create a little blur right in between her contour and highlight and right around the mouth area. So it basically just fades. We're also gonna do here right in between the highlight and the contour. And of course, we gotta fade the nose contour so it doesn't look artificial. Softens up everything. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Okay, at this point, we are going to kick it up a notch with the contour palette. So we're gonna use the Anastasia Beverly Hills contour book to really just go crazy and make it even more high definition than it already is. We're also going to use this book to create a very nice bronzed effect on the outside of her face. So it's basically gonna give it a much more three-dimensional effect, even more than what we've already done. So I'm gonna go in to the Dose of Color setting powder brush, and I'm using vanilla and golden peach. Vanilla and golden peach. And I'm also mixing it with a little bit of banana. And I'm resetting basically, and brightening up around the eye area. And this is what makes everything just look so bright. The reason why I'm mixing the banana with the vanilla color primarily is because I don't want one to look too like pink. Like the vanilla is much more of a cool tone, and the banana is a very, very yellow tone, and I don't want the banana alone to look too yellow on her, and I don't want the vanilla alone to look too gray or ashy on her. So mixing those two, even adding a hint of the peach, gives you a much more healthier outcome. Looking so flawless already. And make sure you go all the way up to the side of the nose to further cancel any shadowing that's the natural shadow of the nose. And we're gonna brighten up the T-zone. Beautiful. And right down the bridge of the nose, a little bit here, a little bit here. And we're basically done with the brightening effects. Now we're gonna do a little bit more of the bronzing effects. So going back to that tapered brush that we were using earlier, the M438 brush, we're gonna go into a color called Fawn from Anastasia Beverly Hills. So far, basically, I'll recap what we've used. The lighter colors have been vanilla, banana, and just a very small hint of golden peach. And now I'm going to use Fawn, which is a very soft, neutral, cool tone for her bronzing, just so her bronzer doesn't look too orange or anything. And I'm just applying it right along her cheekbones. And I'm also, whatever's left on the brush, applying over her powder down here so it doesn't look too white in comparison. This is what's gonna soften the overall look so it doesn't look too sharp. Beautiful. That's Fawn again. So focus on this area here, and then whatever's left on the brush, you can overlap with the previous color that you used on the jaw in case it looks too ghostly or too light. And make sure everything is seamless. We don't want to see any crazy lines. We don't want to see any blotches. We just want to see a perfect face, basically. So now we're ready for blush and highlights. So at this point, I'm going to whip out my highlight tones. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Glow Kit. And what I love about it is the fact that it has so many different tones for a very nice kind of a summery glow. And so what I'm going to use is mainly Summer on her. I might mix a little bit of Moonstone in case Summer is too overpowering, but I think I might like Summer alone on her. So let's try that first and see what we think. And the brush that I like to use for that is the Makeup Forever number 108 brush. This is the Makeup Forever 108 brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this way. And I'm just going to press it and slide it right across the top of your cheekbones. And it gives a beautiful strobed effect. And we're going to use our fingertips to very lightly smooth out the edges. In case you guys missed my highlight class, this is one of the favorite highlight techniques that I like to use on my clients that I came up with. Pressing and sliding, and then using your fingertips to just smooth across and make it look like it's really one with the skin. It doesn't look like I just threw a random highlight on her. So pressing and sliding across and smoothing it with your fingertips. And when I'm smoothing, I'm not pressing hard or anything. I'm just gliding my fingertips so it looks smooth, but not enough for it to be wiped off completely. I don't want it wiped off. And I'm also just gonna add a little bit just to the very tip of the nose so kind of all looks like it's glowing. And we're gonna add a little glow above her eyebrows for that as well. We're gonna go above the lip and a little bit on the chin too. So now she has all these points of glow. And last but not least, of course, I love adding highlight to the collarbones and on the edges right here where her neck connects to the collar. Gorgeous. All right. One thing you might notice is sometimes when we put highlight on, it can make the under eye circle stand out. Not that she has any circles, but now it's showing a little bit of a shadowing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my contour palettes and use vanilla to just re-brighten along the under eye. Because the highlight is so reflective, so any areas that aren't reflecting look darker. So on those areas that are not reflecting, just use a very bright powder, and that kind of cures that issue. All right, now we're ready for blush. We need some color here. We need a little bit of that brightening effect. So I'm going to be using 2 colors. I will use Plum Foolery. They're both by MAC, by the way. Plum Foolery and Well Dressed. Plum Foolery, Well Dressed, both by MAC. I'm first going to use a little bit of Plum Foolery right in between the highlight and the contour. So I'm just kind of dusting it right in between those areas. Okay, and now I'm going to use Well Dressed, which is a light reflective pink. She's going to smile really big, and I'm going to literally just catch the apple of her smile with this beautiful soft baby pink. And it's going to make her look super happy and super feminine, and it's going to give her a very like pastel, beautiful pinky glow, which looks really healthy on the skin. So now, Rosa, I'm just going to ask you to do a little bit of a side-to-side turn so they can see the shine and the difference between your highlights and your contours and how everything ends up looking together. Nice. So now that we're done with the face, we can get through with these eyes. So first thing I'm going to do is go back to my concealer brush that we've been using over and over again from Morphe. And I'm going to put on some eyeshadow base for her. The eyeshadow base I'm going to be using is Soft Ochre by MAC. And this one here, Soft Ochre. And I'm just going to apply on both eyes, and then we can blend. So I'm just spreading it across her entire eyelid, all the way up to her brows. And making sure that it's one even layer. There's no chunks and no areas where it's missing. So we're just smoothing that across. And making sure if you need to use your finger to pat, that's fine. All right, first major step of the eye, before we get started on the brows that is I'm gonna go into my Modern Renaissance palette. This is the Modern Renaissance one that I love so much. And I'm gonna start off with this lightest color, Tempera. And I'm going to just brighten up that whole area under the brow. Now this is what's gonna help me create her brows, because I can actually kind of make the bottom shape with this color. And then afterward, create her brow shape with a brow pencil. And I like to do a couple of nice thick layers. I like it to be very, very bold. All right. So now that that's done, let's get the eyebrows out of the way. So we're gonna use Dip Brow today. So the dip brow we're gonna use on her today is the dip brow in dark brown from Anastasia Beverly Hills. And the brush is also from Anastasia Beverly Hills, but the number totally wiped off. I believe it could be either number 11 or number 12. It's just an angled brow brush with a spoolie at the end. So I'm gonna scoop out a little bit of product onto my hand so I can use that as my palette. And I'm gonna start off with her highest points. And I'm gonna do both sides because I wanna make sure they match. So if this eyebrow is a little bit higher than this, I'm gonna go a little higher here with it. So I'm gonna go just a little bit higher on this side. And now that I have both heights kind of down, I can start thickening up and creating the rest of her shape. So we're gonna slowly kind of move in towards the beginnings. And of course, you definitely wanna always ask your clients, you know, what's your preferred brow shape? Do you want more arch? Do you want it more straight? Do you want me to thicken it at all? Or do you like it more natural? And based on what they say, you just have to give them what they want. The thing about brows is it's such a personal thing. So if you don't do it the way they like it, chances are they're not gonna get past it and they may not like the entire makeup because of the brow. So I try to kind of see what my clients prefer. And I'm just lightly, very, very lightly doing the inner corners of her brows. But everything else I'm going a little bit more dramatic with. Okay. And then you can use your spoolie to soften up the edges. And at the end, if you want it to just kind of disappear, you can let the brow disappear. Keep in mind when you're using a brow brush, I'm gonna do a little demo on my hand. Use it straight ahead, like perpendicular to your skin or to your client's skin. Don't use it flat like this because then you get a fatty, fatty smudge. So if you're trying to create strokes, you have to make sure that your brush is perpendicular to their skin, straight on. And now I'm gonna bring it in. Get this baseline perfect. And fill in very lightly as you're going into the beginnings of the brow. And use your spoolie to soften. And then we just have to make sure everything looks even. So I'm just gonna look at her straight and see if there's anything that's standing out to me. So I'm gonna darken this. I'm gonna raise this maybe just a little bit more. All right, maybe I'll lower this one just a bit, just so it all matches. So this is where we kind of just do minor adjustments. Okay, cool. So I'm happy with that. We're gonna leave it at that until we're done with the makeover, and then we can always reevaluate, make sure everything looks good. So now let's get started on the actual eye shaping. We're gonna use Morphe 330 brush. This one right here is a blending brush. And I'm gonna dip into a nice taupe shade just to give me an idea of her shaping. So I'm just going into warm taupe from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. And right now, I'm just gonna use this as a transition shade. So remember, this is a cat eye technique that I'm doing on her. Since she already has a kind of a cat eye effect naturally, I'm just kind of going along her natural shape in her crease. If you're working on someone with more round eyes, in their case, you need to actually extend their shape physically in order for it to show up as a cat eye. Okay, so right now we have this like crazy transition, and I like to just use my finger to soften up that area in between her light and dark. And you can also use whatever is left on your original brush that applied the lighter color to the brow to overlap and blend with your transition shade. So that eye is done. Now we're going to do the other one. Again, this is just a transition. It's just going to help us figure out the overall shaping of the eyes. And we're extending it a little bit. And we're going to smooth the area in between. Very nice. Okay, so from here we're going to start darkening up the area in the crease. So I'm using this color called Cypress Umber, which is a super, super dark brown, just with the tip of the same brush. And I'm going to focus it right on the outer third of her eyes. So that area where the crease would meet with the eyelash line, the end of the eyelash, that's where you want to start darkening up and adding that depth in the eye. It should look pretty dark and dramatic at this point. And what I'm going to do now that almost nothing is left on the brush, I'm going to start slowly, slowly inching it in to the lower part of her crease. Okay, so now we have this darkness going on here, which is basically going to be the frame of that really bold glitter smoky cat eye that we're going to create. Same on this side. We're going to focus right where her crease fold or her lid fold touches her lash line. And we're going to fill up that outer section of the eye there. And then slowly bring it in to the lower area of the crease. This is the lower crease. So I'm not covering up all of the transition above the crease. I'm focusing just on the lower crease. All right, now that that's done, we can actually start really, really filling in that shaping of the outer part of the cat eye. So I'm actually now gonna go in with black. This is the Noir eyeshadow from the Tamana palette, but they do sell it. Anastasia Beverly Hills sells this by itself. It's just Noir, the darkest black I've ever used. And I'm using a very tiny, tiny brush. This is from Haku Hodo. Any small brush would do, even the Morphe 506 or 507 would do. And I'm redarkening the outer corner of her eyes. So I'm creating a very, very black border for the cat eye effects. And I do want it to go out into a point, so I'm just very lightly pointing it outward. And now, right below that chocolatey color, we have this lovely line of black going in there. And we can totally use the previous brush to blend if we need to, but that may not be necessary because we still have to fill in the lid with that burgundy shade, that berry shade, so we should be okay here. I just want this all to be as black as possible. So basically every step is just making the previous step stand out a lot more. We can even wing out this entire area here to really make it just blast out. She has this amazing large space on her eye where we can really play with this. Ooh, yeah, okay, good. That looks nice. Now the other side, going back in, darkening up this corner. That's with the black, the noir. And we are going to extend it a little bit into a nice little wing. My phone is going crazy. Smoothing that out a little bit. I definitely don't want anything to look chunky. I don't want anything to look unblended. So whatever's left on this brush that had the brown on it, I'm going to bring it out. Extend it into the temple zone, right up in here. Ooh, it's like it just blasts out. And now I can start framing the cat eye right along the lower edge of the crease. So again, every step is just darkening the previous step, but in a slightly different zone. I don't want to cover up all the brown. The brown is really just there to help with the blending. I'm just here to darken up and add that black to make it look more dramatic. So now she's gonna look down, and I'm just gonna make sure that the two eyes match so far. Okay, now it's time to fill up the lid with a good cranberry shade. So what I'm gonna use is Sangria, this one right here, with a flat eyeshadow brush. This is the MAC 239 brush, which is just any flat eyeshadow brush. And I'm going to do the press and slide. So this is the press and slide motion. I'm gonna fill in the entire naked part of the lid. When you're pressing and sliding, you're getting a very, very strong color payoff. And I always have my other brushes handy in case I need to go back in and redarken the crease or blend a little extra or whatever it is that I need to do. I'm able to do it because I have all my brushes handy. Okay, now for the other eye, Sangria again. Close your eyes. And we're filling in the entire naked part of the eye, which is basically most of the lid. And I like to do 2 thick layers of it just to make sure the color payoff is like perfect. So going back with the black, I'm just making sure that everything is still intact. Very pretty. Now, here's another tip in case you guys ever get little bits of fallout here and there. As soon as you see it, I want you to just flick it away with the brush that you use to highlight under the eyes. Matte powder, not a shimmer. And this will help get rid of any little dusted fallout, anything that you don't love. Okay, now we're ready to really darken up her eyes. So I'm gonna go in with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dark Side Waterproof Gel Liner. And she's gonna look up to the ceiling. And first, I'm going to darken up the entire waterline. And because this pencil is waterproof, I have no worries in the world using this in the waterline. Okay, so I'm going pretty thick with it. Look how crazy that is. I go pretty thick. And I'm gonna start with a little bit of a wing on this inner corner. And in order to create a nice wing with a pencil, all you need is a tiny brush. This is the Morphe M160 brush, dash 1/16. It's just this little tiny guy. And before the pencil sets, you can actually extend the wing and create a really sharp, beautiful effect. Okay. And now we're gonna do the other side. I'm gonna fill in the entire waterline. I'm going to go a little bit over the lash line so it bleeds over a little bit. And I'm going to start creating a little bit of a wing here. And I'm going to extend that wing and make it a nice sharp point using this tiny Morphe brush. So cute. I love it. Okay, so now we're not done with the bottoms yet. We still have to smoke it out. So I'm gonna go now with the small little smudger brush from Morphe. This is the 515 brush. It's just a tiny little smudging brush. And I'm going to set her waterline with Noir eyeshadow. So she's gonna look up to the ceiling. And I'm going to use this black eyeshadow to set her black liner and to smudge underneath and create a little bit of a smoky effect. It's going to help blur the line as well. And also, in case you have this issue with lowering the lower lash line, having gaps in there when you're doing eyeliner, color over it with black eyeshadow and it'll hide those gaps, just in case. All right, now I'm gonna start kind of extending out here. It's gonna help me with my outer wing later. Okay, so that part, the black is done, but we still have to do one more step. Now the other side, we're just gonna go ahead and get that black done as well, and then I'll show you that other step. So while she's looking up, I'm gonna set her waterline with the black eyeshadow again, going all the way across, and whatever's left on the brush smudging underneath. So I'm going all the way to the corner, but I'm not touching the point of the wing. I want the point of the wing to stay very pointy. So just be very careful when you're doing that part, not to make that wing look thick again. And now we're gonna start extending this way. And again, anytime you get a little bit of a fallout, just dust it off right away. Don't give it a chance to stick to the eye. Now we're gonna do one more thing underneath. And that's going to be adding a little bit of that burgundy tone below her eyes. So I'm going to use Morphe 169 brush with the sangria color, Morphe 169. She's gonna look up to the ceiling, and I'm going to add this shade below the black, so it has a warm cast to it, and it adds to the berry effect. Again, anytime anything falls, you gotta get rid of it. Okay, same on the other side. We're just gonna add it right over the lower section of the black. So you're not covering up all the black. You're only overlapping with that very, very lowest section of the black, just to give a smoky effect. That's all. That's all we're doing here. And again, flick off excess product that fell. Looks so pretty. Okay, now we're ready for the top eyeliner, and then we can start working on all the fun stuff like the glitter and all that. So for the top eyeliner, we're gonna use the, one of my new favorite things in the world, the Tartist Double Take Eyeliner. One side is a pencil, the other side is a liquid. So I'm gonna use the liquid side, and she's gonna close her eyes. And I'm gonna start drawing her liner. And I'm using this felt tip pen nice and flat up against her eye, so it can kind of just help me draw my line without me having to work so hard. And then before it dries, you can use a tiny brush that we used earlier to create a flick at the end. And she can look down a little bit, open your eyes, but just look at the floor, yeah. And I'm gonna connect this inner section. Close again. And I just wanna make sure there's no bumps in my liner. So I'm gonna stretch the skin and get right in there. Okay, now she can open. And that is the finished liner side. Now we're gonna do the same on the other side. Close. Using it flat. Stretching the skin up so we can get very close to her lashes. So remember to go flat so that the pen can actually do all the hard work for you instead of you trying to create a straight line on your own. And when you make your wing, if you need a little extra help with it, then simply do the same thing I did. Grab a tiny, tiny brush and extend the edge of it before the formula dries all the way. And that way it basically looks like the wing is disappearing as it goes out. And that'll help you. And then if there's any little gaps, just fill it in very carefully. Awesome. Let's just make sure that beginning part has connected. There. All right. Now, I'm just gonna add a little bit of black eyeshadow down here to connect my lower edge of the eye with the wing. Both sides looking good. And I just want to make sure everything else looks balanced, which it does. And lastly, before we do the lashes and the glitter, I'm going to go back in. This is the Morphe 507 brush, tiny little thing. I'm going to go back in with the black eyeshadow. And I really, really want to heavily darken that outer corner. I want it to look super black. So same on this side. Maybe we'll turn a little bit, yeah. There we go. Ooh la la. Okay, time to also re-brighten under the eyes just to make sure, because we did a lot of wiping. So I want to just make sure everything under the eye looks super bright. So back to Vanilla from the Anastasia Contour powders. There we go. Okay guys, now let's go ahead and curl the lashes. Let's put on some mascara, and then we can put on the glitter and all that stuff. And then while the glitter dries, we can actually do the lips. So she's gonna look down, and I'm just gonna curl with my Shiseido lash curler. And I'm going to use my waterproof mascara from Lancome. This is the Hypnose Drama Waterproof. She's gonna look up to the ceiling first. I'm gonna finish up her lower lashes. I like to use my fingers to separate as well as smudge any clumps. And we'll do the other side. All right. Now that the bottoms are done, we're just going to give it a little bit of a dry time before she looks all the way down. And then go ahead and look down to the floor. We'll get your tops on. If you're ever working with a client that blinks a lot, like Rosa's good, like she's not blinking, but if you get a client that's very sensitive around the eyes and they blink a lot, give them a second to calm down. If it's still just not happening, have them close their eyes and do their mascara. So let's do a quick example. Go ahead and close your eyes. If you lift their lash while they're closing their eyes, it's less scary because they can't see the brush coming at them. And that is just fine to do. So that's just another way in case your clients are like super scared of this. So now that that part is done, let's go ahead and pop on some lashes. We are going to use the Tamana lashes from Flutter Lashes. I haven't used these in a little while. These are the Tamana lashes by Flutter Lashes. You can find this at flutterlashes.com. And they are mink lashes, so they can be used about 25, 30 times if you take good care of them. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually customize ours a little bit. I'm gonna whip this out. I'm going to trim the extra parts on the edge. So like there's this extra little string thing that happens at the end because these are handmade. So you're gonna trim both of those. Now before I do anything else, I wanna just make sure this fits her, which it seems like it's a perfect length, so I don't have to cut the width of these. Now, the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold it up with my tweezer, and I'm going to curl them with the lash curler. And this is going to help the hairs stick right up and become very wispy, so they poke up and look more dreamy as the end result. And I'm going to be using my House of Lashes glue. This is my favorite lash glue. And I'm just gonna apply it along the whole band. And I'm gonna wait for the glue to get a little bit more sticky. It already comes pretty nice and sticky and thick, but I do prefer it to be like almost dry before I pop them on. So we're gonna wait just a few seconds for it to really get tacky here. And then we're just gonna pop them right on. And I match center to center, and then I close in on one side, and then I can close in on the other side. She can close her own eyes now, and I'm just gonna make sure that it's fully adhered. So I press down on it. Now she's going to keep this closed for a second while I just fan it dry. And when she opens, I'm going to help her in case it feels stuck. So you're going to go ahead and open your eyes now. Actually, we're good. Okay, cool. Cool. Looking nice. In case any glue got on the bottom, just use a disposable lip thing or a Q-tip and just make sure that there's no extra glue coming down. All right. Now that that's done, I can do the other side. So back to customizing our lash here. We're going to cut the edges and we're going to curl them to create a more flirty, fluttery, feathery effect. And I'm going to apply a good amount of glue across the band, just like last time. And we're going to wait for the glue to get really tacky and sticky so that we don't have to deal with mess. So center to center, close down one side, close down the other side, and now she can close her own eyes and we can really press down, make sure nothing's popping up. And I like to use my finger to make sure all of the glue is like nice and spread. And let's fan it, speed this up. And it looks amazing. Girl, oh my God, I can't. Okay, now for the glitter, and then she's gonna keep her eyes closed. It's gonna be her nap time. The glitter is going to dry, and while the glitter is drying, we'll do a nice soft rosy color for the lips, like in the picture that I showed you. It's like a very nudie pink almost, so we're gonna use that type of shade on her, which will look really good with her dress too, because there's different shades of the lighter pink and the darker pink on her. Another thing that I do wanna do is just make sure that that outer corner of her eyes is really, really dark. So again, I'm just gonna add a nice thick layer of the black on the outer corners of the eyes. This is the 507 brush from Morphe. Okay, ooh. All right, here we go with the glitter. So we are gonna use Urban Decay Heavy Metal Glitter Liner in Catfight. It is a very magenta color, and that's why we went with this color for the lid, because usually whatever color glitter you're gonna use, make sure your eyeshadow underneath it matches it so it looks more opaque. So now she gets to close her eyes and relax, and we are going to apply a nice thick layer of this glitter on her. So I'm gonna start with one area, the lower area of the eye. And we're gonna start working our way up. Sometimes glitter can be a little difficult. It can get chunky, it may not stick to the areas that you want it to stick to. So if it's starting to get a little difficult, just let that first layer dry and then very lightly pat on more once it's dry. If it's all too wet, it can tend to slip and slide and not really stick very well. Especially if you're doing layer over wet layer over wet layer, it may not stick. So just be gentle, and also don't press hard when you're applying the glitter, especially when it's a pre-mixed formula like this. It's a glitter liner. So if you press hard, you're gonna wipe off half of the glitter. So you definitely just wanna kind of lightly pat it and slide it across. So that's layer number one. While that dries, I'm gonna work on this side. Now these glitter liners, especially if you're gonna use a lot of it like this, it does take some time to dry. So you never wanna rush it, because if the client accidentally opens her eyes while you're applying this or before it dries all the way, it could cause a major messy disaster. And when glitter gets everywhere, it is so hard to clean it. You might as well just redo the whole eye. So definitely you wanna warn your models, warn your clients, warn your friends that this is the glitter step, this is your nap time. Do not open your eyes until I tell you that it's safe. Otherwise, your makeup is gonna be completely ruined and we're gonna have to start over. And any areas that aren't sticking, I'm just gonna lightly pat it, and then we can always wait for the second layer to fill in any gaps. I'm gonna go back to that first eye now and start filling in gaps. You can already see how much better it's laying on the second layer now that it dried. And you want it to look more sheer as it goes out to the black, so I'm not going so thick on that outer edge. Being very careful here. I don't want to cover up any of her eyeliner either. I don't want the glitter to get all over her lashes either. So just be very careful anytime you're working with glitter. Be very aware of what you're doing. Okay, that's looking pretty intense. So while this dries, let's go ahead and do some final touch stuff in her lips. So first thing I do want to do is add a little bit more mascara to her false lashes. So I'm just going to add whatever was left on my spoolie onto the very tips of her lashes to spike them out more. So I'm just kind of dragging across the tips only. And that'll make the spikes show up a lot more. So with the Tamana lashes, I created a nice thick base and very thin wispy spikes throughout, so that in case anyone wants a very lengthy spiky effect, they could simply just add mascara to the ends and it'll basically look like an entirely different lash style. If you want it to look really natural, then don't do anything with the lashes, just wear them as is. Okay, so we're gonna still have her eyes closed. Let's go ahead and do the lips. So what I'm gonna use is Soar lip liner, which is like my all-time favorite, kind of goes with everybody. And the lipstick we're gonna use is a liquid lipstick by Anastasia Beverly Hills in Stripped, which is just a nude. And this, with the Soar lip liner, is gonna create a little bit more of a rosy tone and not as nude. So I'm just gonna sharpen the pencil first to sanitize. And I'm gonna start lining her natural lip line. And I also like to kind of fill in the outer corners of the lips too. But I focus more of the color saturation on the edges. All right. So now that the lip liner is done, we're gonna go ahead and fill in the entire lip with the liquid lipstick. And one of the brushes that I really love for lips, I don't know why, I mean, this is just, it's not even a lip brush. It is a smudger brush from Morphe. It's M168, but I like it because it kind of fluffs on the formula of a liquid lipstick really smooth on the lips. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a little bit of this stripped liquid lipstick by Anastasia Beverly Hills right onto the back of my hand. And I'm gonna pick it up and literally just slide it and fluff it across her lips as her first layer. I'm also gonna lighten it up with some Myth lipstick by MAC afterward, just for like a nice smooth nude finish, but this is going to be basically layer 1. And see how easy, it just quickly just fluffed it right on. So now I have my handy dandy lip palette, ta-da, and this one, Myth. That's what I'm gonna use on the center of the lips. And it's basically just gonna brighten up the look and make her feel a little less dry. And it's still a matte, so it's not gonna make it look creamy. It's just gonna brighten it up. So I'm using this right on the Cupid's bow area and the center pout. And now that almost nothing is left on my brush, I'm able to just kind of dab it across. And you get a much more nude effect this way. All right, so now all we have to do is just very, very final touches. I love to just at the end go back in with the contour book and just kind of play around and make sure I have everything looking really mattified and really smooth. So I'm going in with Golden Peach right now, kind of re-chiseling down here. I'm gonna go in with Vanilla, brighten up right around this lower cheek area, around the eyes, of course, right in here. And just freshen up the entire look this way. And now she is officially done. So I'm gonna let her do some posing for you if you guys want to take any screenshots so that you have it in your memory and you know what to do when you want to recreate it. This is a very dramatic look. This works really well for reception parties for brides or bridesmaids going to Indian weddings, especially when you're wearing something that has, you know, maybe a little bit of these colors in it. It's very fun matching a little bit of your outfit when you are attending an Indian wedding or anything like that. But even aside from that, we are approaching this amazing fun costume season. So you can absolutely use this as a part of your inspiration for Halloween looks and for costume tutorials. If you guys are on YouTube and you want to make YouTube videos, you can use some of these techniques to create your own versions of different vampy looks. You can make a very glam, vampire or anything like that. And I use these type of techniques on myself all the time during Halloween. In fact, I almost never buy a Halloween costume because you can literally create a whole new look on your face for any of those type of costume parties without having to buy a costume. So that's the funnest part. But I used this technique and this look on a couple of my brides in the past and a few of the girls, especially this last one that I posted that you guys voted on. She was just attending an Indian wedding and it just looks so beautiful. So imagine the tika and the forehead piece. You have the big, beautiful earrings, amazing jewelry, and a very decked out outfit. Of course, right now it's, it's very, very dramatic and she's wearing the perfect dress for it, but there's no jewelry to match it. But of course, when you pair this type of look with very glamorous accessories, it all starts to balance and it looks so amazing. So I'm gonna let her go ahead and pose side to side and you guys can take a better look. She's gonna look down for you and she's gonna look into the camera for you and just kind of show you her beautiful contour and her highlight and all that stuff. Beautiful. So that wraps up today's show. I'm so glad you guys were able to tune in for our bonus class, and I'm so glad that you're here in town so that we can finally work together. This was something we have been wanting to do for so long, and she even said she's never really had her makeup done, but one of the things that we said to each other was we can't wait to meet each other so we can finally play with makeup together. It'd be so fun. So let's say bye to Rosa. If you guys want to follow her on social media, go ahead and spell out your Instagram name.
Rosa and Faizad, Faizad.
Rosa Faizad is her Instagram name, and I will surely tag her in the promotional videos so you guys can look on my page, find her picture, and know exactly who she is. Beautiful face, beautiful family. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to hopefully see you soon again. Yay! Bye, guys.